we have roughly around 4.5 millions of small and medium companies. And of course, large companies, large number of startups we have in India. And the number of startups is just growing. They are hungry for capital, technology, innovation, and they are badly hit by the COVID-19 lockdown. What would be your advice to them, particularly the SME, MSME, and the startups to accelerate and grow?
The harsh reality is this. Unless you're particularly creative and unless you have found something new to take to the market, it's very likely that all of those aspiring entrepreneurs are going to be competing in competitive markets.
Yes.
Where, when all is said and done, the difference between their product and their competitor's product is probably not very much. The difference between their service and their competitor's service is not very much either. So you then ask yourselves, well, around what sorts of things can you truly differentiate? And you can differentiate in terms of the culture of the organization. You can differentiate in terms of the ethics and the integrity and the leadership and the authenticity and the governance and the vision and the belief within the organization.
You know, my advice for small and medium companies is to accelerate the adoption of new digital solutions. Lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about being truthful with your organization and with your customers. As the India flag reminds us, truth alone triumphs. Demand for transparency and honesty is critical in communicating in a post-COVID-19 world. Accelerate digital adoption to enable reimagination. Refocus digital efforts to reflect changing customer expectations. Increase the speed and productivity of digital solutions. I guess technology is the only savior and also the tool to quickly progress from small and medium enterprises to a stable and formidable organization.
So here's what's interesting. In Utah, we have 92% of small and medium-sized companies. So we consist, the small and medium-sized companies are the backbone of Utah. We set everyone around the table and we said, government is not creating jobs. It is businesses that creating jobs. It's the business that takes risks, the entrepreneur takes risks, and so there should be a reward. That's what our governor always says. The thing was taxation was also very important. Don't tax us to death. Now I need to tell you here that the state of Utah has a tax rate of 5. And out of those 5%, 41% goes into education. That's the way we fund our education. What needs to happen is there needs to be an environment that rewards entrepreneurs and risk takers. We developed small business development centers. We develop through the small business. We have seminars. We have a governor's office of economic development that I work in that helps companies, for example, to get government contracts.
We need to group them. We need to group them by domain, group them by clusters, make sure that they can recognize that they are strong when they come together. It's not necessary to actually merge. Virtual mergers are good enough. Resources will need to be provided to this sector. And what are these resources? Access to technology, access to research, debt, and equity. It is extremely possible, very, very easy to do if the mind is made up. A contribution by the sovereign to a fund to support these resource requirements of the MSME sector. If that is seeded by, say, the government of India and the state governments in smaller measure, then we could have a conjoined large fund which is multi-sovereign, which will enable all of this to happen. And if they can do a first loss guarantee for 75% of the debt, then the kind of momentum to lend to this sector by the financial institutions can be significantly enhanced. and the entire cycle of making sure that these impaired organizations can get back on their feet can be set in motion.
If you want to grow and if you want to crack the growth ceiling, you need to do two things essentially, right? You need to first build a strong management team, right? With a strong management team, you will be able to delegate the day-to-day running of the business to your team members, and that will allow you to focus on the more medium to long-term strategic issues, okay? And many founders of companies, even companies that have been successful, fall into the trap of not building management teams. And so they spend their entire day on, extremely short-term issues, like, why has the delivery to this customer A been delayed by 1 day, right? And so that's not something that the CEO of a company should be worrying about, right? Of course, it's very, very important. It's very important to keep your customers satisfied, but you should have competent team members who are looking after that, right? And so that's the first thing. So build a strong management team. The second thing, which goes hand in hand with the first point I just made, is to rely more on systems and processes, right? Rather than ad hoc decision making, right? So you need systems to evaluate people. You need systems to measure the performance of your employees, of your team members. You need systems to determine who has outperformed and who has not, right? What kind of a bonus to give, team member A versus team member B. So very much systems and process driven. And if you want to, grow in the manufacturing industry, by definition, you have to be very, very, very process driven.